Good evening, everyone. Ma'am, since there are just two of us, iPhone, ma'am, for now. Ma'am, could I know your name, please?
Ma'am Alka. Actually,
Hello, ma'am.
iPhone, ma'am.
For now, that's the only name I can see.
Oh, okay. I was not aware. Okay, I'll just change it.
No issues, ma'am. Yeah, actually, thank you so much, first of all. Literally, the session couldn't have happened without you. But I wanted to kind of start with all of you keeping in mind, now we have three people. So let's all keep in mind that at the end of the session, I will be giving you the opportunity to ask any doubts that you have. Even throughout the 5 days, if you have had any doubts, this is the last session. We are ending the series today. So any doubts, you can just note down, and then we will solve all of them towards the end of the session. I have kept enough time for that. Hopefully, in spite of starting late, we'll be able to do that. So today we are going to talk about teaching creative writing. And this is something I've specifically said, unlocking creativity in the CBSE classroom, because often we hear complaints that, while we would love to do this, it's not something practically possible in a CBSE classroom, because after all, there is limitations. There are those limitations that we have on ourselves. A syllabus is probably the biggest one. Time, we don't have that much time. So we'll talk about all of these. So we'll talk about why creative writing matters in the first place. If there are so many challenges, why are we doing it in the first place? That is a question we will answer. We'll talk about the common challenges that you all might be facing. We'll talk about strategies for teaching creative writing, where we are able to integrate it into the CBSE classroom, and probably, make sure that we are using time wisely in that manner. And finally, after we talk about our general professional etiquette, writing etiquette, we'll talk. I'll leave it open to you, and you can ask me any questions that you have. We'll kind of brainstorm and come up with answers together. So before we start, this won't be a very long icebreaker. I think we've all broken the ice. It's more about making it a little interesting, a little fun. So let's do some creative writing of our own, where if you could write an autobiographical poem based on your teaching journey, what would the title be? The title of your autobiography, we often have this kind of a joke, running joke, right? So title of your autobiography, but specifically about the teaching journey that you've had. My passion. Punita ma'am, great. Punita ma'am, if I'm not wrong, even when we were talking about vocabulary, teaching vocabulary, you had said something similar, if I'm remembering correctly, excitement or passion or something like that you had said. If I remember correctly. Alka ma'am?
Thank you. Ma'am, I can say my struggle through to improve my personality, or overall development struggle through my life, all over my life.
I like that. A lot of people would see that as a negative, but being self-aware is itself, it's such a big skill, right?
Yeah.
So, Lata ma'am?
Wrote in the chat, I said reflections of my teaching journey.
Sorry, I think I missed your message.
No problem.
I did not get the message. There is something wrong with the chat. That day also, my messages were.
I've written the reflections of my teaching journey.
Great. That's true, right? We do kind of reflect on things, and I'm taking it in two ways. We think about things, kind of try and improve it, and also the children are a reflection of our teaching journey. So in both ways. Sir, I thought you were in class, so I did not pick you out and ask you that question, but that's such a great answer, sir. My experiments with English, I hope the experiments are going a little better. I've been able to contribute a little bit. with my series here. And great answers, all of you. I would just say unfinished, because I feel like there's so much more left for me to give and for me to learn as well. So that is what I would call it, unfinished. Now, the question that I began with earlier also, why bother when creative writing teaching is such a big, hullabaloo? Why should we even bother? Often we think of creative writing as something that is, it is only for language enthusiasts, but that's not true. It's a misconception that it's only for language enthusiasts. And here are a few things that I genuinely believe creative writing helps with. One is it develops critical thinking and problem solving skills, because anything creative, so this is about multiple intelligence, right? So whenever you learn anything new and creative, we are able to, like, our brain kind of develops in the same manner. We often say this about languages also, right? The reason why, one of the reasons, not the only reason, but one of the reasons why Indians are doing so well all over the world is because of the fact that we are all multilingual. Pretty much any urban Indian happens to be multilingual by default. We are not even making an effort. We are probably learning English as our medium of education. We probably are living in a state which the state does not match our language, our mother tongue, and then we have our mother tongue itself. So three languages almost like glibly every child speaks. And I find it kind of funny when you know Europeans are like, oh, I know two languages. And I'm like, yeah, so I learned five languages when I was 5 years old. What are you talking about? Right? And that's a very common thing for Indians. And that is why that creativity, that problem solving, the approaching things in a certain manner, that the opening up of your mind, that is where creative writing will help. It obviously also enhances emotional intelligence. I was again talking about multiple intelligences just right now, where creativity is something that it's not a brain thing, it's a heart thing. Correct? So that emotional intelligence, that empathy comes with creativity. And of course, the more practical aspect of it, definitely, it does improve your vocabulary, your language proficiency in general, because unless I'm proficient, like for me, I said I know five languages, but I know for a fact that except English, I can't write poetry in any other language, because that happens only after you reach a certain level of proficiency. English is not even my mother tongue, and yet that it's definitely my first language, right? So that happens when the child reaches that level. That's when you know, okay, I've made sure that the child has reached a level where now the child is able to create new work of its own, and not just because a prompt was given and teacher asked him to write. Correct? Next is it boosts confidence and self-expression. There is something inside all of us. There is a story inside all of us that we want to tell, and all we need is a language to express it in. And when I say a language, I don't mean just the language of English, but the language of creativity, the language of poetry, the language of plays, the language of stories. Correct? So that once you express the confidence that comes with it. Yesterday also I was talking about how you need to be passionate about what you're talking about, and that passion will show through. Correct? So that's why I was talking about yesterday, giving children topics that they are interested in. Similarly, once they have creative writing, obviously they'll only write about what they are interested in, because it's not a compulsion. So as a result, they will gain confidence, they will gain self-expression, which will be of a level far, far beyond what they will do just by looking at the prompts that you have given them. It definitely also prepares students for future careers, because there's a lot of innovative thinking that they do. It connects students with literature on a deeper level, because that is, again, like I said, there is a level that you need to achieve, after which you will voluntarily try creative writing. But for that, we will give the students the skills. After that, they will develop it or not develop it, but we need to make sure that we are giving them the skills that they need. Right? So that is why we need to teach them creative writing. Now, to be fair, to be honest, there are a lot of challenges that we face as well. So let's talk about the challenges. And I want you all to suggest some solutions, because I'm not claiming to have all the solutions. I do have some solutions. We'll discuss them. Otherwise, let's see what you have. How are you dealing with this? Or are you dealing with this in the first place? One is that we have too much focus on exams and factual writing. And we need that, right? It's not something we can throw out saying that, okay, from tomorrow we won't have any exams. There is limited time for creative exploration because the syllabus itself becomes so wide, especially with the languages. What happens is we are knee deep in correction all the time. Because with something like mathematics, for example, only if the answer is wrong, I might actually look at the steps. But with language, you have to read every single line, and you probably have a comment about every line that the child has written. So you have to give them proper feedback. And I talked about the need for feedback as well. So we are so bogged down with other work, that, being the ideal English teacher does not come naturally to us sometimes, just because of lack of time. Another thing is that there are reluctant writers in our class, and that's okay, because everybody won't have the same language proficiency in every language, and it's absolutely okay. Even Kumaraswamy sir right now was saying, right, that there's a little bit of a struggle with English, and that's okay. I'm sure he's great at some other language, or there are some students who are just not good at languages, but they are great at maths or science. So they have their own strengths, right? So being able to engage those reluctant writers is a challenge on its own. Because like I said, we are not expecting each and every child in your class to become the next Shakespeare or the next Wordsworth. But we need to make sure that they've had that experience at least once, so that whenever they next feel like, okay, I want to try it out, they have the skills ready there. So how do we encourage them? And then finally, like I said, the misconception that creative writing is only for language enthusiasts, and people like lay people like you and me don't need to do this. Only if you're going to become a writer, you need to learn creative writing. So these are the 4 common challenges that I feel. If you feel I have missed something, please tell me. Or if you have suggestions on how to overcome these challenges, also please do share. What have you done in your classes, in your teaching journey?
Jyoti ma'am, I basically feel our students are not very good readers. So it reflects on how they are, writing. And secondly, they come up, just before the exams, like you're saying, you're not getting enough time to practice with them.
Mm-hmm.
So actually happens is by the time they want some kind of a mantra so that they're able to, end up doing something creative, but it does not happen.
Let's wave a wand and get it
Do
done.
follow the steps we tell them, but the creativity does not, reflect in that. And they will come to us and they'll say, what's wrong in this? And I don't know, that there are times when we are not able to explain, because it's not wrong. Technically, it's not wrong, but creatively, it's not right. That's what happens.
I think I understand completely. And this is also one of the reasons why we as teachers always say, don't compare your papers, especially with languages. Do not compare your papers, because children, what they do is quantify things. He wrote 5 pages, I wrote 6 pages. You gave me 8 marks and you gave him 10 marks. Why? It's not about the number of pages, and it's very difficult to explain to them. But I think somewhere we as teachers also need to start trying to not quantify but qualify our marks. So if you give them like a proper detail saying that, okay, vocabulary needs to improve, or structure needs to be better, I think that helps with the feedback giving that I was talking about the other day. But coming to the point that you were making, that often they feel that reading is not that important. To be fair, I think the world has become that way. Even I have just this year, my uh, New Year resolution was getting back to reading, because I used to be the person who would read a 500-page book every night after mom has switched off the light and with a torch. And now I have gone to having to have a resolution to read at least 30 pages every day, which is sad, but at least I'm working towards it. But coming to students on a serious note, what is happening also is that reading has become kind of easy, in the sense that, oh, we'll just listen to it on audio, or we will read a compressed version of it, or we'll ask chat gpt to create a compressed version and just get the basics. I think one thing you can do here is teach them how to read, in the sense that, like I was saying, in one of the previous classes, what happens is we often think of chapters as just to be read and only comprehended. Sometimes you can take the opportunity, maybe only one sentence per chapter might happen, but you, if there's a very beautiful sentence that has been written, I'm sorry, I'm not able to recollect which story this was, but there was a story by Rabindranath Tagore. I think it was called The Snake Charmer, where there was this one sentence which was so beautifully written. Usually, whenever you see a character being described, a character's physical attributes being described, it's a girl, right? Because that's what writers do. But in this case, there was this boy being described so beautifully that I remember our teacher actually took the time. She said, okay, I'm just going to bring your attention to this. And then she talked about each and every word, how deliberately the word has been chosen, what might have been the other word to be used, why do you think the author chose this word, how the sentence has been structured. Just like there is a grace to his walk, in spite of being a very gallant, manly walk, there is a grace to the sentence structure. These are the things that she made us notice. And when you do that to your children, that way the children start noticing these things. Next time when they're reading something, they will have your voice in their head, kind of talking back to them, right? So that is one thing you can do. Coming to other challenges, one thing, I think one of the common threads that we see is time. We are all like, we all have that same 24 hours, and probably very, very less time with children. Within that, we have to do so much. I would say with time, use the circle time, use your if you're a class teacher, spend some extra time with the kids whenever you do have circle time with them. I think there is CC activities that happen. You can use a lot, because a lot of CC activities also do have a lot of writing work and things like that. Make it more interesting for the kids, because there is a little bit of free reign given to us. Make it a little more interesting for the kids. And in case, because there are some schools which are more corporate driven, and they assign you saying that, okay, this is what you will do in this month. In that case, please make sure that if it is becoming a little tasks being done just for the sake of them, maybe you put in an effort and say, okay, I have a few suggestions, can we kind of put this forth to the corporates? This can help, first of all, make your job easier, but also create that, because again, when the language teacher says do this, children are like, ha, this is what she will say all the time. But when it comes to a CC teacher saying the same thing, it feels like, oh, this is the fun time, right, for children. And I'm sure you have all seen how on bagless days they are more excited to come, because it is fun time. So make sure that that fun time becomes interesting for them. And the way I am thinking of it, incorporating creative writing in daily classes, one of the things is, when you just go to class and say, okay, now you have to write like a 500-word essay, they have already zoomed out. They are like, okay, I am not doing this. Instead, introduce smaller, simpler things to them. One thing that I always like to do is 6-word stories. Literally 6 words. You're not supposed to put a 7th word there. This does 2 things. First of all, it's a great entryway, because they feel, oh, this is simple enough, 6 words to main likh lunga, you know. But what also happens for the children who are actually paying attention is that they pay a lot of attention to the words, because there's just 6 words. There's so much you could do with it, and then you know, play around with the words, interesting things you try and find out from those words. And probably one of the most famous 6 word stories is this, also very tragic, which is for sale, baby shoes never worn. If you think about it, it's just 6 words, and yet there's such a big story probably hidden behind it. Think about it. A child, if somebody bought shoes for a child, the child probably wore it, right? But it's never been worn. Why were did the child die? What happened? Right? It's a very tragic story. And yet 6 words, it makes you think so much. What happened there? What is it I'm missing? These are the questions you kind of have, right? There was another very inspiring one. I think it was something like rock bottom, question mark. Hey, I like climbing. So, you know, looking at things in a positive manner. So a lot of things you can teach through this. And you give 5 examples, I'm sure they will give you 10 others saying, oh, it's just 6 words. Arey, 10 likh denge, ma'am, aap ek bol rahe ho. That kind of enthusiasm you can get from them. Like I was saying, for reluctant writers. Again, haikus. Here, I'm sure a lot of you are already aware of what haikus are, where it's actually a Japanese style of poetry. So technically, because Japanese is written vertically, it's very symmetrical. It's kind of that shape. There's a 5-syllable thing, 5-syllable line, then a 7-syllable line, and then a 5-syllable line again. But in English, we write it like this. This poem is kind of fun. I didn't want it to be as serious as the 6-word story. So only so many hours and so much to get done. I'd rather take a nap. That is probably one of the reluctant writers speaking there, right? But at least it makes it interesting for them. It feels like, oh, it's a very small thing to do. इतना कुछ नहीं बोला मैम ने, कर ही देते हैं चलो. मैम ने अगर 200 वर्ड का स्टोरी लिखने का बोला, इट बी लाइक, अरे यार कौन करेगा. बट व्हेन दिस कैन बिकम योर इंट्रोडक्शन. अच्छा, यहां से तो शुरू करो, फिर आगे देखते हैं. दैट काइंड ऑफ थिंग. अब आगे क्या देखेंगे? Cross subject integration you can do, where it could be, if these are some suggestions, you can do a lot more. If you're taking language and history, you could make it historical fiction. You could introduce math into language and make a lot of logic puzzles. By the way, I'm personally very interested in math and very interested in languages, but I never thought of this. I found this book at a flea market, where it was a maths poetry book, and for children, 4-year-old. My daughter's 4-year-old, and I read it to her often. The poetry is literally about addition. So 1 to 10 they are teaching, and how the different combinations of numbers, right? So it says something like, there's one entire set of poems about otters. So how 2 otters were building a dam, and 6 otters were doing something, so total they are 8. Then next line says that 5 otters went to look for something, 3 otters were protecting the food that they had, so total they are 8. So different combinations. And that is probably something that I never thought of, that math and poetry has anything to do with it. But also, again, logic puzzles is what would naturally come to mind. But apparently there's also logic poetry and mathematical poetry. Then there is also probably the most obvious, if you mix language and music, you get songs, you get poetry. And syllables become very important there, and children love doing that. If I actually sometimes do this, where if I'm doing poetry, and if I'm rather teaching them how to write poetry, I'll deliberately use an extra syllable or a syllable less, and they'll be like, "Ma'am, maza nahi aa raha. वो ऐसा rhythm में नहीं बैठ रहा." They don't know it is called meter. They don't know it is like a certain number of syllables have not been covered. But that tells you who has an ear for music, and it's beautiful to discover such things. And sometimes you get such beautiful collaborations within them as well. And finally, any optional assignments. So this could be things that you just keep a set of assignments in class. This will not be for the reluctant writer. This will be for people who are genuinely interested, children who like the language. Okay, if a child likes the language, he or she is more likely to finish the work early. Honestly, they are also more likely to disturb the rest of the class later. So instead, keep a set of assignments in class. Okay, whenever you have finished your work, you can go and do this. Replace this verb. Say the word said. It has so many different things you could do with it. Replace the verb and make it interesting. Write a rant, something that you really are passionate about. Write a small rant. Right? Two versions of the same situation. Again, this is something that I did. I don't know if you all have read this. Three Men in a Boat. Does anybody remember this book, Three Men in a Boat, by Jerome K. Jerome? There was a short story from it called Uncle Podger Hangs a Picture. It's a very funny incident. I remember rewriting it, the same incident. I asked a child to rewrite it in any tone that they like, in any mood that they like. And the entire story, so the original short story was about this clumsy man who tries to hang a picture and kind of blames everybody around him and makes like 15 holes in for hanging one picture. And it's narrated in a very funny manner. But the same story was described by that child. Incidents remain the same, but the tone has changed because the child was interested in languages. And he talked about how he has reimagined it as a kind of situation where this man is an abusive parent and all the children are like cowering in fear because this man has decided to do something like hanging a picture, and they are afraid that if I do one thing wrong, the hammer will probably come flying at me, which is a completely different tone from what the original exercise or story kind of needed, right? So that is what I would say generally. Creative writing, make it a part of your daily lessons rather than making it a separate thing that you do. That is about creative writing. I also wanted to quickly cover professional writing etiquette because I got a few comments saying that, comical to scary. That is exactly what the child did. A lot of comments I got saying that, okay, we need a little bit about the formats. I'm not dealing with the formats because that could change from sometimes even teacher to teacher, it changes. Although CBSE will give you a fixed format, but that also changes year to year. But if you keep a few things in mind when it comes to professional writing etiquette, it really, really makes a difference. So generally speaking, I think these are things that we as teachers already know. You could convey this to the students, which is, how in every school, there is that one teacher who's supposed to write anything that has to go to an official, to the writing a press note. These are the kind of things that one teacher is always assigned, probably because they have great professional writing etiquette. So it has to be clear, concise, and respectful writing. It has to have collaborative writing ethics in the sense that so this is more about if you're doing, group work, you should make sure that you teach children that even if you're doing, say, a PPT presentation in class, you should not be the one doing just the title slide and the thank you slide. There should be genuine contribution if you're putting your name down there. So that is more about ethics, correct? Respect for intellectual property. So if you are taking any quote from somewhere, be honest and say that this is a quote and this is where the quote is from. Because eventually, when it comes to academic writing, if they do happen to go ahead and write something academically, even if they're writing a science paper, they have to quote things, they have to do a proper bibliography, right? Citations are needed. So unless we make them aware of this, because see, um, when they're writing an answer for a comprehension question, they're quoting it, but they're not really saying that written by this person in every single answer. So that becomes such a normal thing for us that we forget that when we are genuinely quoting a writer, we need to give them credit. So these are things that we need to kind of remind children, especially I would say 10th graders and above. You should definitely talk to them about this. And finally, digital writing etiquette. Basic things like, I think a lot of like, what are they called, Gen Z's and Gen Alphas will already know about this. This is probably something we might learn from them. Because recently I was talking to somebody and I said, why are you writing, like, why are you yelling at me? So the person said, what do you mean yelling? I'm writing, how can I yell? So I said, you're using all caps, that means yelling. So he said, oh, I did not know that that's the case. I am writing in all caps because I was typing something and it just happened to be all caps. I was like, theek hai, chalega. But that is something that we might not be aware of. Using too many emojis or using too many exclamation marks, which really gets on my nerves, like personal peeve, pet peeve. These are the things that you need to be teaching them, or rather learning from them sometimes, because they will say things like, oh, why are you giving me, they will just with a straight face say lol. Like, no, you are not laughing out loud. What do you mean lol? They're like, no, that just means, oh, that was funny, that's all it means. I said, okay, maybe these things changed, I didn't know. Right? So maybe sometimes we need to take digital etiquette classes from them. Coming to the key aspects, again, things that we already know. There should be a polite and professional tone if it is obviously a professional task. We are talking about probably talking to somebody who you don't know personally. Yeah, I will. Have you heard this joke? Punita ma'am, since you said that, I will say this joke. Let's lighten up the tone a little bit. So apparently, I saw this on a TikTok video, like a YouTube shorts. Um, this mother is like asking her child, all these new age fancy names, like short forms. I don't know what are these. So the daughter is saying, okay, this means this and this means this. And she says, okay, and lol means laugh out loud. And the mother is like, oh my God. She said, what happened? When your father passed away, so many people sent me messages saying that, condolences and all that. And I said lol to everyone because I thought it means lots of love. Punita ma'am, I don't know if you have done that. But it's kind of, I'm so afraid of writing anything in short form. I actually generally don't. But I don't know when these things change. So I'm like, to be on the safe side, let me just spell out everything, every punctuation and everything. But apparently.
Good joke. Good joke, ma'am.
Sorry?
Good joke.
Recently I found out I used to put a full stop after every sentence ends, because isn't that correct to do? Put a full stop. Because the sentence ended. We tell our children also. Apparently, that is aggressive in a message. You don't need that full stop. Full stop means this is the end of the conversation, according to Gen Alpha, a niece of mine. So I was like, okay, I have no clue what you're talking about. I think I need to take classes from you. So, yeah, coming back to the professional writing aspects, tone, we need to be very professional, very polite, maintain that distance, don't become too informal, too casual. There should be clarity, because why, like, avoid ambiguity, just make sure that you are saying exactly what you mean. Formatting, obviously, like I was saying, make sure like capitals are there wherever, full stops. We are mostly talking about emails and the stuff. So make sure that those things are there, all the bullet points for lists. Just make it easy for the other person to read. I can say the same thing without bullet points in a paragraph, but why are you troubling the other person, right? This is a professional conversation. They're probably not even going to read your good morning or good afternoon, ma'am. So just make it easier for them. Grammar and proofreading, I think we should do this for everything, not just professional writing, but specifically for professional writing. And again, all of these we'll mostly be talking to older kids because they will be applying to colleges and things like that. Sorry. And last, purpose and audience. So if I am writing to the dean of a college, the way I address them, the way I put forth my skills will be different from if I was writing the same kind of letter to the principal of my, because the principal probably knows a little more than the of another random college. Purpose to introduce yourself, to ask, and who is your audience. Both of these make a huge difference. So tailor your content accordingly. Okay. And finally, with that, I am done with the section that I wanted to share with you. If you have questions, you can go ahead and ask here. I would say for the entire writing skills series, not just this particular class that we had today. Generally speaking, if you have any questions, please go ahead and ask. Or if you have something that you want to share, I would love to get some feedback as well.
Jyoti ma'am, I would like to add just a thought. Like when we were talking about creative writing, it really makes a lot of difference. Sometimes, like you were saying, that we are able to bring out the real thoughts, and like you talked about that old man hanging the picture. It really sometimes really opens up the child, and we are really actually able to get inside their head and understand where they are coming from, and the.
I had a few questions as well.
Yes.
Correct. I was like, okay, what has this child witnessed?
Yes.
Like, but it becomes a way of their, like you correctly pointed out, a way for them to express themselves. I don't think they would, because it was a way for them to express themselves, they were able to say this. Otherwise, they would not say this. If this was something that they have experienced personally, I don't think they would share that voluntarily.
Either they are very good storytellers, or they have experienced that somewhere else, and it really brings sometimes it gives us a chance to enter their heads and the doors which they've closed, and as class teachers especially, we really get to understand these our children better. So I think in that case,
I had one child. I remember in my staff room, a child came to us, and she had submitted a horror story. Horror was the topic going on. So she had submitted a horror story. I remember the teacher saying that, can somebody correct this for me? So we were like, you corrected the 25 other books, what's wrong? She's like, I'm not able to go ahead because it's so scary. And she was somebody who was very afraid of ghosts, and she believed genuinely in ghosts and things like that. But imagine the skill level of the child where the teacher is like, no, this is genuinely scary, I don't want to read this anymore. You must appreciate, at the same time also have questions about what are you imagining. Anyone else? Any questions you have?
Yes, okay, ma'am. Just I wanted to ask that how I can contribute, because I am a math teacher, and basically we have mathematical terms, but sometimes we have word problems. And mostly till 10th, what I have observed, lower classes I'm not taking. I'm talking about 8th, 9th, 10th. On all three classes, mostly they are facing problem in word sums, story sums. They are simple. I can't teach them English or creative writing in the class. Correct. So it's a very simple thing, but still they don't understand and they do wrong. So as a math teacher, how I can contribute so that they can understand a simple language and do that correctly?
That's very interesting, by the way. Interesting question.
Because I can't tell English teacher that, okay, you are not teaching, they are not understanding. That is not my work. And
no.
So
I think we don't need to go on the defensive like that. How about if you actually have a conversation with the teacher and have like discuss, maybe she could give you some, because see, specifically the children that you are teaching, they might be yes, Punita ma'am also pointed out the same thing. They're not able to understand the statement sounds. So either there are certain skill levels which are missing. So you can together maybe come up with a solution, or just have a class or two where you just, because with math, no, there are only limited types of questions.
Limited questions are there, and they are also very simple.
Very simple.
The main purpose of attending this workshop, that I also don't know much about English, but still, main purpose that how I can contribute as a math teacher. Also,
what I would suggest is, why don't you all get together and have maybe one math class and one English class just dedicated to just make it easy for them. Say that these are the type of questions. If you see this word, this is what you're supposed to do. This word, this is what you're supposed to do. This will be for children who find it difficult to, think of things in language terms. For the children who are really good at math, but language kind of makes them scared. So that way what happens is, because they're good at sums, you have made even the statement sums into a sum for them, an equation. Right? That could be one thing. Or when you're doing this, you could actually take the help of the English teacher, and maybe she could help you in the way that you give them the equation version of it, and she explains why it is this way. So for the children who need the logic behind it, need to understand, because in third grade, I still remember, because I'm very good at math. So I still remember in third grade, I lost marks because it was a last sum and it was a statement sum. And how in maths you have to understand that these many are gone. So I did it the other way around. Smaller number on top and bigger number on the bottom. And I got 9.5 out of 10. I still remember after so many years.
So one in the end, just one, maybe you can consider as funny, but we have so different type of students also. The very weaker, average, and very bright also. So last year, English teacher was checking paper, and we were sitting in the staff room. So she was just reading answer for that. So it is just a transformation of Hindi to English.
Correct.
So जैसे हिंदी में हम बोलते हैं कि पंखा नहीं चल रहा है, तो that child has translated that fan is not working. So we don't understand what is चल रहा है. So English and Hindi we move that it's moving मतलब चलना. So these type of things we are getting.
ऐसी बहुत सारी चीजें होती है. I remember मेरे बच्चों की आदत थी, बोलते थे मैम can we close the fan? So I used to say, if you find a lid big enough, sure, you can close the fan.
Yes.
Yes, Punita ma'am said, inculcate the habit of reading newspaper or listen to English news. That helps a lot with, especially with social science. I feel like that helps a huge ton, because especially nowadays, and I'm saying this as a person who used to hate social science, and nowadays I'm noticing that, my God, children are so unaware of the world around them. They only care about themselves, like with blinkers, only their life and nothing else. They have no clue what is going on in the world, which is not a good thing. And now I'm realizing what was, like, I used to always wonder, what is the need of all this history and geography and civics and everything. Now I know what is the need. Now I know exactly what is the need. So, reading newspapers, and again, even something that we take for granted, like we read the news during the assembly, right? We kind of take it for granted, but we often read the news exactly how it is in the newspaper. So we get used to that formal language, very concise language. That's also a great way to introduce children, because assembly, even first graders are there, right? So they get used to, okay, this sounds very different from how we speak. So they get used to that formal language, newspaper language. This also becomes a great way to introduce them to it. If no one else has anything to contribute, we can.
I wanted to say
Yes, ma'am.
something. With the new pattern of questions coming in, I think we need to really, with creative writing, also, like ma'am said, children are not able to understand the questions.
Hmm.
We are getting this brand of questions which says assertion and reasoning. And I think it's happening in multiple subjects and across all disciplines. The children are unable to understand them usually. They know the concept, but they are not able to relate the.
Related. Yeah, I think that is something that, by the way, I'm glad that they're doing this, because when we were young, we never had this. No higher order thinking skills at all. It was more of यहाँ से खा लिया वहां जाके उल्टी कर दो पेपर पे हो गया. But I'm glad that they're doing it. I think it will take a little bit of time and effort from us, from them as well, and a little bit from the parents as well, because often parents just say, have you learned everything? Not have you understood everything? Have you learned everything? Like by heart, and then just vomit it out on the paper. But that's not what is needed. And that attitude change, once, see, with us, what happens is we have repeated trainings and things like that, which remind us, okay, this is our purpose here. But we have to understand parents are not coming from that perspective, right? So we need to train them, we need to train the teachers, the students, which is completely upon us. So it will take time, but it will happen. Believe me, it will happen. With time, it will happen. It will not happen overnight.
Then the blame
Just
comes
more and more examples.
then the blame comes on the subject teacher. They're saying, no, they did not teach the subject properly. It's actually not their fault. It's the perception of the child.
Correct.
How they
But
perceive.
we can also do this where we first understand the concept of the question, not the concept of the subject. I'm sure you're very good at your own subject, whichever subject we are talking about, but understand the concept of how the questions are framed, and then give them enough practice for that also, to think critically, think outside the box. And honestly, that opening of the brain kind of happens with the creative writing and innovative thinking that we were talking about earlier.
Absolutely, ma'am, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jyoti ma'am.
Just one slide I have at the end. I really want to end with this, which is, there is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you. And I'm glad that, Lata ma'am, you brought that up when I was talking about the Uncle Podger Hands a Picture story. And as teachers, you hold the key to unlocking those stories. So let's inspire students to find their voices, to share their creativity with the world. And I hope I have contributed in some way to achieving that. If you have any feedback for me, you can go ahead and share that. Else, we can end with that. And what I suggest is, meanwhile, I'm going to just type the number on the chat. Actually, there's some issue, no? Lata ma'am, can you type it then? You have sir's number, no? You are on mute, but I can understand that you're saying you will do it. So Lata ma'am will just type a number on the chat. Basically, if you want a certificate for today's session, you can please go ahead and pay 50 rupees for the certificate. The session, obviously, you've attended, it's free. But if you want the certificate for it, you will receive a certificate. Send 50 rupees to this number. Take a screenshot and share both that screenshot as well as your complete name along with your title to that number, and you will receive the certificate within 1 day. And these certificates are individual, like only for today's session if you have attended today's session or yesterday's session, and so on and so forth. So in case you forgot, like you attended both and you want for both, please mention that and send 100 rupees, and vice versa. Okay. Have you sent? Because I don't see it. Okay, I just got it. I hope everyone can see that number. And with that, we come to the end of our session and to the end of our series. So I hope you all gained something out of this series, and hope to, if you have any suggestions for anything else that you want us to do, please go ahead and share. I would love to do it. Thank you, Punita ma'am. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you, Alka ma'am. Thank you, Lata ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I have attended only 3 days because I came to know from my friend. The first two I missed, but I hope the coming days, maybe I will join more and I will learn more English.
Sure, ma'am.
Okay, thank you
There
so
are
much.
other subjects as well. There will be a few sessions coming up. I hope you are on the group, the webinar group.
Yeah, I'm there. But
So
which
you
Matthew
will.
sir, which Matthew sir has created, na, right?
No, Ravikant sir.
Ravikant. Yesterday I attended his that 8:30 to 9:30 workshop. I have
Perfect.
attended.
So then
That
what you
Bloom's
can do is just
Bloom's
tell him.
taxonomy.
Correct. So what you
Yeah.
can do is just tell him, he will put you on the group, because there you will find all the, like we keep forwarding all the sessions, whether it's a paid session or a free session. We can keep telling you what is going on in SNTTC.
Sure.
And
I think he has added. He gave me link yesterday. I don't know on which group, but
Okay.
for that particular webinar, I think yesterday's one he added. So I will ask. I will request.
Please ask him to add you. He will be more than happy.
Sure.
And also,
Sure.
I would like to take this opportunity, just 1 minute, to say at the beginning, there was some confusion. I'll come, the others who joined later won't know this.
No, I gave link to Kajal ma'am. She's also from my school, so she has joined. You can see her name there.
Yeah.
I have given two, three more, but maybe they due to some
That's
problem
okay.
they
That's
haven't joined.
not an issue at all. But what I was saying is that in the beginning, remember, sir gave you the host privilege by mistake, and then you told me that it'll take time for me to present. I was just joking, but actually that reminded me that I always had all this knowledge, but I wasn't so confident about teaching other teachers, because let's face it, it's not the same thing, right? Teaching children is different. Teaching other teachers, they can question you, and you have to be correct, right? And really, SNTTC and Ravikant sir have been a great help, and I think Lata ma'am will attest to my statement that seriously, if any of you feel that there's confidence that I'm lagging behind in, or there is something that just that one small thing that is missing, I would really encourage you to join the Train the Trainer program. I believe it's the 7th or the 8th batch that is going on right now. Please, like, if it makes sense for you, please do join it.
Sure, ma'am. Sure.
It would really be effective.
I'll request sir today only to add me, and then we will soon again and again. Okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right, then, everyone, have a nice day, have a nice evening.
Thank you, Jyoti.
Have a nice Sankranti, Uttarayan.
Same to you, ma'am.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night, ma'am.